The current state of Brandt Gate has to be really weird. Like, Batman is back because they recently got some kaiju support, and then you also have the Misty Scythe deck with the Ancestors, the third Ancestor in particular, being really good and solving a lot of issues for the deck, which frankly I'm really happy for them, especially Kagetsu. But like, there is one more standout from DZBT10 in Brandt Gate, a deck that's been getting support for over 2 years now in secret, and no one's really talking about it. Is this even still a thing? Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Mr. here. Today we are back to talk about Blue Deathsters and Avantgarda in DivineZ for a second time, because I have done an Avantgarda DivineZ deck profile back in DZBT04. I'll put the link in the description. But this deck got 2 support waves this year, and I actually was going to cover the first one. The first one was in DZBT07. With the new strategy order. Yeah, they actually got a whole new strategy order as a common. Can you believe that? This should have been like a tournament promo, like what they did with Office, but no, they just gave it to us free as a common because Kidani knew that this card can't sell, and he was right because the only one who bought it is me. But they didn't just do that, they also gave us more cards in DZBT10, including a brand new double rare who is actually really good, and a new rare who is also pretty good, but I'll get into him in a bit. But no one seems to really talking about this deck, which is why I was really shocked. The fact that this video is probably delayed, because I'm probably going to delay it myself, is for an ulterior and personal motive. I'm most likely, almost 100% sure, going to be playing this deck at least one WGP and at least one regional myself, because I frankly have been utterly impressed by this deck. Like, I used to hate this deck from the bottom of my heart, because I just thought this deck was really bad. I love the aesthetic, I just thought the deck was really bad. And like in DBT13, they gave us, Avantgarda Richter, who just compounded all the problems and didn't solve a single thing. Not like, Elf Knights, who actually does solve problems. But then down the line, they started printing more and more legacy support, like they printed Sabin Melma, who does help quite a fair bit. And they also gave us 2 waves of support in DZBT07 and DZBT10. And now it's reached a point where I think this deck is actually legit. So today I'm going to go through the whole list. I'm talking about all the new cards that they've added, and what they mean for this deck and how you can build this deck overall. Because this deck is not only good, in my opinion right now, it's actually fairly cheap because you actually managed to cut out a lot of the old generics that Avantgarda used to play. Most of this is all double rare and lower, and even the original magazine promo, which is Ala Argento, she's already been reprinted as a 300 yen card in one of the festival boosters. So frankly, I don't think cost is gonna be something that stops you from playing this deck. I think this deck is actually really affordable right now. And yeah, so that's really all I'm gonna talk about it. So let's start off with the right deck. The right deck is still the same. We still play our grade 0 as Sora period. This deck does have a hard reliance on needing you to have this one particular starter, and you cannot Soul Blast this card, because if you do, you just lose the game. All the Avantgarda skills need you to have Sora period in the soul, and if you just don't have it, then you just die. So you definitely cannot Soul Blast it out. That being said though, you do have more leeway with the grade 1 and the grade 2. They both have matching skills when if they're wrote by the other higher grade counterpart of themselves, you can just search your deck for a strategy order corresponding to the card. So sorry, the grade that is. So for this is Blue Deathstar Unsays Findanis, right? You can search for the grade 1 strategy order. Currently there's only one, which is Killstroke. The grade 2 can search for any grade 2 strategy order. The only one we are playing is the new one, which is Mass Funeral. Really metal name, by the way. But we're not playing the old one because dusting does not do very much anymore. But this card really solves a lot of the issues of Avantgarda. In fact, I was almost going to do a video on this card, but I fell sick during DZBT7, so yeah, that was fun. And then last but not least is our good old Avantgarda. Avantgarda still is same as per normal. He may feel the most rejected out of the DBT09 Dragon Tree Invasion group, but this skill is still evergreen, I would say. I mean, I would definitely not hate a retrain of Avantgarda, because this right line is still a bit clunky to me because it only searches the deck, and if you fail to search from the deck, you just get a return of calling these guys out from the soul, which kind of conflicts with the new double rare, because the new double rare kind of already does that. But that's honestly an issue for another day. Like if they redo the Avantgarde deck, like in terms of the right line, I'm sure they can solve that problem. But anyways, as for the original Avantgarde itself, X skill, if you have a Blue Deathstar Sora period in your soul, you can choose a strategy order from your order zone and move into your soul and draw a card. This unit gains 5000 power and a new red text continuous skill. Sorry, a new red text auto skill, and the auto skill is at the end of the battle that this unit attack hits, or if you persona roll this turn, counterblast 1, choose a card from your hand, discard it. If you do, you can stand this card with drive -1. So basically, it's just a really basic Vanguard restand deck, haha hee haha hee, and that's it. Okay, that's it. But it is simply very effective because you can threaten in 18k restanding Vanguard against a grade 2 body, and if it hits, right? So if you've played V Dragonic Overlord back in 2018, you'll know that that's still a pretty good skill. And your strategy orders, some of them do give you power. Like Killstroke does give you 5k, and Death Winds gives you a whole front row 5 on the stacking bonus. So you do actually get some ways to get power, and this deck does have good power on its center column and its left and right, which, you know, is not a laughing matter. The only thing is that Avantgarde doesn't plus, right? It doesn't really plus much. It net zeros the order, and then when it restands, you have to discard 1, drive -1. So basically, you don't get a plus of the restand. Avantgarde Richter, on the other hand, which we'll cover in the grade 3 segment, he forces you to discard 2 cards, and then you also need to pay the cost of himself from the hand. So, you know, he kind of is the -4 to play the deck. The good thing about the modern Avantgarde support, and why I'm even doing this video, is because right now they are kind of solving the problem of not being able to find your pieces and not being able to combo. The only downside of this deck still is, you know, it still doesn't have a lot of hand and it still can be rushed, but the deck is now strangely demonically consistent with its kill turn, which I will get into later on. Okay, so we should talk about the orders first. Our orders, we play 2 of each. Okay, so the ones on the left are the old ones. So I'm not really going to cover them much. If you already know what Avantgarde does, these should not be alien to you. Killstroke is just a quick way to retire a rearguard. It helps in this format. You can snipe off Yu Mashard, but frankly, a retire 1 and that's it doesn't do very much. Obviously, Death Winds is your main method of killing, and it's the only strategy that is not searchable by the right line, so that is a bit of a problem. But you do have Ala the Argento, who, you know, is still a very integral part of the deck. So Ala the Argento will give you the ability to help you search the last strategy out of your deck. Like the whole deck, it can just search. So generally speaking, we are playing 2 of each to ensure that we always will hit a target from the right line, because we don't want the right line to call themselves out. If they do, it does conflict with the purposes of the new double rare, right? So that's basically all you do need to know, is that if you do actually end up calling the right line, your double rare kind of loses its utility, and that is kind of not a good thing, right? So you generally want to search it out. So these 2 you already know. Mass Funeral is the newest strategy order, and frankly a surprise card. We are only playing this at 2 because it's still searchable by Stelvane. Frankly, I've seen people play up to 4 of Mass Funeral, and I think that's okay, because Mass Funeral is really that good of a card. So when this card is moved into the soul from the order zone by your Vanguard's effect, you get one of these 2 effects, but you have to declare it, right? So the first effect you can get is at the end of the battle that your Vanguard's attack fails, you know, you can search your deck for a grade 3 card with Avantgarde in its name and add it to your hand and shuffle. So then the second skill that you can get is, during this turn, any trigger effects or strategy order effects that you get in terms of your Vanguard, right? The next Avantgarde that rides on top of that unit will get the effects as well. And this means that your trigger effects and your strategy abilities, mainly Death Winds, who gives +5 to the front row, you can actually copy that through every version of Avantgarde that comes out. So if you download it on the original Avantgarde and then you go into a new Avantgarde, right, you get all that skills. And if this new Avantgarde copies the ability of Death Winds, when you go back into your original Avantgarde, you know, the one that you bind and write back, you get this skill as well, which does sound, you know, quite complicated. It's like, oh, I don't get what you mean. But the long and short of it is basically that you get to enjoy the entire benefits of that turn just passing through. Like the problem of Avantgarde being able to switch through the Vanguards again, is that you don't keep any of the bonuses, right? But with this order, if you use the second effect, you get to. However, the strongest effect is still the first one, because the first one lets you search for a grade 3 Avantgarde when the attack fails. So on your first grade 3 turn, when your Vanguard attacks, your opponent either chooses to A, take the attack and have to deal with a restanding Vanguard, or B, you could just search for a Persona for your next turn, or you could just search for a Richter for your next turn, which basically means you have infinite consistency when it comes to, actually ascertaining your kill pieces. This is huge news because previously Avantgarde never had a Avantgarde searcher, right? Like, we had to use freaking Fry Heights to cheat that out. But not anymore. We now have this at almost 100% consistency. This comes out to the right line, and if your opponent guards the attack, which they most likely will, you can search. And even if they don't search, then they just take more damage. And if they take more damage, then, they die. But Ames, I hear you say, how can I get my strategy order? How can I get my Avantgarde searches if my opponent keeps taking my Vanguard's attack? Well, we have new ways to search the deck, such as through the new double rare Macy Distance, and we still have our older ways of fishing Avantgarde back from the drop with, Asagi Milestone. So, all in all, the deck is just getting more and more ways to get the things it wants, and that is absolutely incredible. For our grade 3s, we still play 4 copies of Avantgarde. I mean, this one's kind of obvious at this point. This deck literally does have a Persona right clause, so like you kind of have to. And then we play 4 Richter. Now, before the new support came out, some people were even starting to cut Richter down to 2, right? And I understand Richter is the worst card in this deck. Richter's skill is basically, as an X skill from your hand, if your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater, bind the original Avantgarde from your Vanguard and write this unit as stand and copy its skills onto this card until the end of the turn. And then his other skill is at the end of the battle that this unit attacked. If you have a Blue Deathstar Sora period in your soul, discard 2 cards from your hand, choose an Avantgarde in the bind zone. The original Avantgarde, and then you write it as stand, and then that unit gets plus 10 and minus 1 drive. But the thing is that when you bind this Avantgarde and write on top of it, you get this skill, right? So basically, you can use this same skill to download another strategy if you want, and then you also can copy that red text from that download skill. So if you don't want to download 2 strategies per turn, you can just not download with the original, bind into the new one, then use that skill for the first time, download, and then you get not only the Persona right / on hit restand, you also get the discard 2 to rewrite skill. But the discard 2 to rewrite skill, plus the added fact that you have to bind the original Avantgarde and then write this as stand, does mean you go -4 in terms of every time you use Richter. So Avantgarde definitely still is a go first deck, but going second, if you are somehow able to build your board and threaten his hand consistently, yes, this is still pretty alright to use on your first going second turn. But definitely in terms of your Persona right, he's 100% you need to play him, because on that turn, Avantgarde's restand will always trigger, right? It doesn't matter whether the attack hits or not, which means you can guarantee 3 Vanguard attacks with Richter for doing nothing. As long as you just Persona right, you get that, right? So I understand why some people do actually cut Richter down to 3 or even 2, but because of the fact that because of the fact that the new double rare, i.e. Macy Distance, does need to search the top 5 cards in your deck, it does mean you need to max out on your Avantgarde names in order to find it, which, is a bit of a drawback, but not too large of a disadvantage. Definitely, when Avantgarde gets more support down the line, this is the one I'm most interested in changing, because Richter, honestly, is so bad of a card, but like, they've given him so much supporting framework that it almost feels like he's relevant now. It almost feels like he works. And that scares me, because this card is bad, but like, the fact that now he actually can deliver some of the most deadliest turn 4s in the entire game's history, I'm all for it. But in terms of overall, I am still not a fan of Richter, but he's a necessary evil if you want to play this deck. Of course, like I said, down the line, if they do end up, replacing the right line and even changing Richter, I'm okay. I'll be very happy if you do that. Moving on to our grade 2s. Our grade 2s of this deck, we still play 1 copy of Stelvane in the right deck. This one also has not changed, it's still the same card, so I won't really be going into it in too much detail. We do have a lot of recurring faces here. Ala the Argento is at 4. This is still, and 3 Sabine Melkmar, and 1 copy. Our final grade 2 is of 1 Twin Tusk. So Aladia Gento and Sebin Melma are both copies of Burning Horn Dragon and Bellicosity Dragon, i.e. if your Vanguard attacks, every time this unit gets 5000 power, but it only works on a grade 3 Avantgarde, so you know that does kind of suck. But that's okay, because that means your rearguards can be 20 to 25k beaters by themselves, which is pretty good. Aladia Gento's skill allows you to Soul Blast 1 when placed on a rearguard circle. If you have downloaded a strategy order from your order zone this turn, you can search your deck for a strategy order of a different grade and add it to your hand. If you can't search the deck, you can also search the drop as well. So that makes it almost 100% on hit. Like, you will hit a strategy order, there's no way you won't. It's just that it can't search out the same strategy. So that means you are constantly forced to re-innovate and play differently, which is why having multiple different strategies is good in this deck. As for Sebin Melma is a lot more similar. It's a lot more simple, but it does only have the ability to fish strategy orders for the drop zone for Energy Blast 3. It doesn't have a great lock in terms of what strategy you can add, but it only takes from the drop zone, so she's not as applicable. So that's the only reason why she's at 3. I do like her very much. I would like to play her at 4, but too many doesn't really give you much. Oh, but the skill to add the strategy order back to the hand can also trigger when this unit is discarded, so it does kind of act like a gun cycler. Sorry, as a Festival 2024 Dragon Cycler. So, you know, the ones like Saber and Farmjar and Warden. Yeah, it kind of functions as that, which is appreciated. Our Regardless piece is twin cast in this deck. It's a very simple reason. This deck's defense is really bad, so you absolutely do need extra shield, 100,000%, because this deck cannot stop early aggression for its life. It is a combo deck through and through, and needs to hug as many pieces as possible. And because you're still playing shit like, you know, Richter, who does require you to discard 4, you can bet your bottom dollar that, you know, we don't have a lot of hand. So definitely playing this is the worthwhile option. None of the other defensive Regardless pieces offer you as much ability to combat early game as twin cast, so definitely pick it up. For our grade 1s, we play one copy of Fiendanis in the right deck. This one again is the same guy as just now, so I'm not gonna cover it too much. Our new card, we play 4 copies of Macy Distance. We play 3 copies now of Hanada Halfway, so that's a bit disappointing. 2 copies of Asaki Milestone and 4 Perfect Guard, with 1 Perfect Guard being the Crest Sanctitude. Mainly this is to help us stop the Buddy Fight decks, because Buddy Fight is pretty popular, right? So in order to stop most of the decks with Crest, you generally will play this Sanctitude instead. You can play this Sanctitude to stop Ignis, but like, considering the only thing this stops is Ignis and Nana Clear, and Nana Clear is a virtually dead deck, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. In fact, the thing is that because Buddy Fight is a lot more rampant when it comes to open rounds of Swiss or in terms of team tournaments, I would definitely recommend you use this Sanctitude instead, at least for the next, I don't know, 2 months. But if not, like, if you don't play in a Buddy Fight infested area, you can just use any Perfect Guard you want. It doesn't matter. But again, because like I said, I am playing this deck competitively right now, so yes, I will be using this, thank you. So yeah, Hanada Halfway is still our good old Vibatsuka clone, which is when placed on... Actually, he's not even a clone, he's like the original. When placed on a rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard Blue Deathsters in its name, +1, draw a card. And when this unit boosts, if you put a strategy order into your soul this turn, this unit gets... Sorry, if you put a strategy order into your order zone this turn, this unit gets 2000 power. And if your Vanguard... And if this unit is in the center back column, you can counter charge 1. So... Hanada Halfway, as long as you get 1 copy minimum in the center back, you can boost for magic number of 10k and a free counter charge every turn, which is why Avantgarda is one of the few Brandt Gate decks from its inception who's never actually had a counter blast problem, which I do appreciate. However, as much as I would love to play Hanada Halfway at 4, like I said, this deck has a lot of other more important must plays and more important cards you need to see in the early game. So Hanada Halfway is kind of dropped to a 3. But definitely down the line, I would love to kick him back at 4 because he's definitely one of the most powerful cards of this deck. But let's talk about the real highlight of this deck right now. The reason why we're even doing this video. And that's definitely Macy Distance. Macy Distance is the newest double rare from DZBT10. And she, at face value, she's one of the most broken cards they've ever printed in terms of what it does on paper. But when you actually play it, you realize they put in enough countermeasures that you don't really feel this card's broken. When placed on a rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard Blue Deathsters in its name, Energy Blast 3, Oh, when placed from the hand, if that matters. Energy Blast tree. Look at the top 5 cards in your deck. Choose a strategy order or a grade 3 that's not a Regalis piece and add it to your hand and then shuffle. And then the second skill is during your turn, if you have a Blue Deathster Vanguard Soul Blast 1, choose a Battle Droid with Blue Deathster in its name that is the same grade or less as your Vanguard. Call it to the Vanguard circle in the same column as this unit and give it the skill that at the end of the turn that unit will kill itself. It will retire. Okay, and that's it. So, Macy Distance, first skill, right? It's just another copy of the Cardinal Fang Rafilok or Shikanoko, where you place your regular circle, EB3, look at the top few, add a card, haha, then shuffle the deck, and that's okay. The problem is, because it's energy and not Counter Blast or Soul Blast, you can't really get a compensation. Like, the energy cards don't really energy charge if you fail the skill, and this card is no exception. So you could straight up just pay 3 energy and whiff the entire skill, which does suck. Which is why we do have to play 4 copies of Richter no matter what. Because like if you fail this skill, you may lose too much tempo that you lose the game. And that is a very unfortunate skill. But the fact that you even get an Avantgarda Searcher at all is still pretty good, right? It's still a great way to actually play a card that uses energy. Which, you know, a lot of decks would love to have an energy Searcher. Feltiosa. But you know, this being on this is, you know, it is pretty good. The second skill is a very weird skill. You may ask yourself, why do I need to Soul Blast 1? Call a specific Battle Droid, which is only, you know, these guys plus one other rare from DZ. Sorry, not DZ. One other rare from DPT10 who's irrelevant, right? Why would I call these guys to the same column when they're just vanillas, right? And then just attack. Well, the thing about Macy Distance is Avantgarda does get a lot of soul when you download strategy orders and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. So you can now convert the excess soul to having a temporary column of at least a grade 3 and a grade 1 every turn. Technically, this is the closest thing Avantgarda will ever get to a plus. And you know what? I'm completely down for it. The fact that every turn you can just get a free, you know, 13k beat stick in front of your 8k grade 1 booster means that every turn, just by paying 1 Soul Blast, you don't even need to call replacement attacker. She'll just sponsor another mecha pilot for, you know, another mech for her to pilot, and then after that she just attacks. It is flavorful, it is fun because she is, you know, like a jet pilot that's hopping from mech to mech. But it is also a pretty strong card in the sense that it does ensure that you can, 1, early rush because you can use it on your grade 1 and grade 2. If you Soul Blast it, which you will, right? Or 2, if you just need a column. That is why we can even cut cards like, you know, Sebi Melma down to a 3, because previously this would be inconceivable that you play less than 8 copies of your best attacker. Now you can, because you just need to open one of these on one column and then just have Macy Distance on the other column, and you have a consistent board. It's just that. It is really that simple. Honestly, like I said, Macy Distance is a card I've completely grown to love over playtesting this deck intensely for the last like 3 to 4 weeks at this point. And like, she's not the best card. Like I said, there are problems. Like if you whiff the energy skill, you do lose. If you bring on the strategy orders, you can't call out from the soul, which does suck. But like when it works better than 90% of these formats decks, to the point that, you know, if they just fixed the proprietary current issue of Avantgarda, be it that the original cards are just shit, I'm actually sure this deck can be top tier. Like, they managed to fix Vase Rule, right? Like, this is an insane band-aid of a card they can print for a deck. Instead, they gave Vermilion half of Finlander, which is like, why? Why did they do that? Asagi Milestone is the easiest card to explain this deck because she's been around since Richter, and she's kind of necessary because of cards like Richter. Her skill is very simple. When placed on a Vanguard circle, if you have a Blue Deathster Vanguard count as 1, choose a grade 3 Avantgarda from your drop, add it back to your hand, and during your turn, if a strategy order is put into your order zone this turn, this unit gets 5,000 power. Sorry, if a strategy order is put into your soul this turn, this unit gets 5,000 power. So she is a 13k booster and beat stick when you reach, you know, your grade 3 Avantgarda. And when placed on regular circle, you can count plus 1 and just fish an Avantgarda back from drop. This does help, especially because when you have a lot of these useless, shieldless cards in your hand, you can just discard it early to right, and then after that just fish it back to your hand when it's time to kill. And Avantgarda has no shortage of counter blast because of cards like Hanada Halfway. So she's just played at 2 copies just as a little tech option because it does give you a safety net when you want to discard more freely for your on rights. But other than that, you know, she stays at a 2 off. You don't need more than that. And last but not least, for our grade zeros, we play Sorapir as a starter. This one, like I said, because all the skills require him to be the starter, you don't really have a say in whether you want to or not. You just have to. We play 8 crits because this is a restand Vanguard deck, Draconic Overlord lol. We play 3 effect draw. Oh, I'm so sorry. We play 3 effect draw. Because this deck, like I said, is missing out on a lot of pieces. So drawing is nice. 1 Elder Breath. Elder Breath is just an alternate main con, so you know that's easy. And then we play 4 heal. Currently I just threw my Sengoku Yuno into this deck. Just for fun. It doesn't matter. You'll see her around on a few lists here and there as I go on. But it's nice. I finally want to bank Dream Girl, so I just threw in here for this week. Well, probably won't keep her there for long, but you still need 4 heal to play this game. This is Cardfight Vanguard. And yeah, that will wrap up our deck profile for Avantgarda with all the new support that has come out so far in 2025. Honestly, like I said, the more I look at these cards like these guys, I am really impressed. I cannot believe that for such low rarity cards that they've printed and made, they could make support this good. This is the legacy support. This is the design team I fell in love with when it came to DivineZ, because they can print such effective cards at low rarity that really bring back entire dead decks to playable relevancy. Like, it is really good in my opinion that cards like this can be made at common printing. Come on. But like, the issues with Avantgarda, as I mentioned, is that, you know, this deck still has its fundamental issues of there's too many shieldless cards in the deck. You still can be burst out pretty quickly by decks that are faster. In terms of early rush, it only has Macy distance, and I don't know if you consider Hanada halfway a rush piece, because you know he does make your center column 20k on turn 2. But like, other than that, this deck does not have much early game as well. Like, there are gaps in this deck. I won't lie. There is a reason why this deck isn't like the best deck in format. But like, I would say the deck is definitely much more consistent than it used to be, and it manages to pull off the kill turn of turn 4, pulling off your Persona Ride, and then you get Richter, and then you download your, you know, your Death Winds, and then you use your this guy, and then you just kill. Like, that is definitely a lot more consistent than it used to be when DivineZ first started, and I am glad for that. I think that's a great step forward. Moving on for the future of Avantgarda, like I mentioned previously, I think the future of this deck definitely needs this to get a retrain. I definitely think that this deck definitely is in need of changing its right line, because especially the right line, man. Like, this right line is really poor. And I really hope they can do something with this like they did with the DivineZ Relstra, because this deck would be one of the best decks to actually profit off such a design space where you can search out 2 orders for a higher cost, and then you can set up from your hand, or maybe turbo that the strategy orders. That's the same reason why we're not playing this card. Like, I know I alluded to it at the start of the video, but all this card does is from the drop zone, you know. If your Vanguard has not moved a strategy order into your soul that turn, you then just bind the card from your drop zone and choose another strategy order and download it. So it's basically just another Avantgarda skill, which is fine, but considering this has to be in the drop zone and then you trigger the skill, it's like, that seems a bit with more, right? And at that point, you don't really need to do so, because most of the time you just need 1 strategy per turn. On turn 3, your first grade 3, right? You want to use Mass Burial. On turn 4, you want to use your Death Winds. And on a good day, you can trigger both Funeral and Death Winds. And if you don't, that's okay, because most of the time, Death Winds is enough to kill the opponent. So, I don't know. You see, like, there is still enough problems with this deck that, like, it's not, like I said, the best deck format. But like, honestly, I am very excited to play this deck moving forward. Definitely, I've been playing this deck till no end when it comes to testing this deck for the last like 3 weeks, and I think this deck will easily be something I carry around with me until like the next set. Because we all know that next set is Prison and Leonon, and those are decks that completely slaughter Avantgarda, right? We all know this, right? So yeah, I'm just gonna enjoy this ride for as long as I can, because frankly, this is the best Avantgarda has ever been in his entire life. So yeah, hope I win something. Wish me good luck. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.